Welcome in. Hello.
Now, the morning drive.
Look at me. Very good. Bonjour.
Thank you for waking us up.
A little bit of this and a little bit of that.
How do you like your hash browns?
Well, as a royal subject of Bagmania, let me shine your crown and kiss your scepter.
Hang on a second. Look at this.
Sirius XM NASCAR Radio Channel 90. The morning drive.
To the bat balls.
Sirius XM NASCAR Radio Channel 90 welcomes you to the halfway portion of the morning drive for this Wednesday, April 12th, 2023. Mike Bagley here in Del Marvelous Studio 1D. We've got Pistol Pete Pistone in the Bison Palace in Chicago. We've got Sammy and Davey in Studio 134 in the Beltway Bureau in our nation's capital. And we are honored to be joined by a gentleman that's won the Daytona 500 3 times, the Coca-Cola 600 3 times, the All-Star Race 3 times, the Cup Series Championship 4 times, the Brickyard 400 5 times, and the Southern 500 6 times. We're talking about NASCAR Hall of Famer and current Hendrick Motorsports Vice Chairman Jeff Gordon is with us for the entire hour. Top of the morning, Jeff. Welcome into TMD. How are we doing today?
Good morning, guys. I'm doing well. Excited to be here. Oh, there we go. My mic wasn't open. Hey, hi, guys.
Hey,
Jeff.
hey.
Good morning.
Wow,
Great to be here.
Good morning. If Mike was going to keep going on your resume, we'd be at our first break. My God, listen to him go.
I was thinking the same thing, and then I heard the threes and threes and threes. I was like, yeah, back then there was a quite a thing about me and the number 3.
Yes. That is correct.
Well, it's great to join you guys this morning, and I listen often on my way to work or my way back from work, and it's just I look at it very similar to when I was thinking about going up into the TV booth. You're sitting there on the couch sometimes watching a race, and you go, I wouldn't mind adding in on that topic. Yeah, you know what? I kind of call that move right there. I wouldn't mind talking about that incident or whatever. And so I listen to you guys all the time, and I a lot of times think the same thing about when I hear callers come in and hear the topics and the discussions that you guys have and say, hey, how much fun would that be to kind of be a part of it with you guys? So looking forward to the morning.
Cool. All right. Well, since you went there, let's bring you in on the topic that everyone has been talking about this week, and that's just dirt track racing in general. Jeff Gordon, where do you land on dirt track racing in general, and maybe more specifically, dirt track racing at Bristol Motor Speedway?
Yeah, well, of course, my background is dirt racing, so I love dirt racing. I'm a big fan of it. I've never driven a stock car on dirt, and so there's some. I probably go back to ARCA, right? Watching ARCA at DuQuoin and Springfield and some of the dirt tracks, the flat 1 mile tracks that I always thought was interesting. Put on a pretty good show. I think that Bristol, certainly whatever they do, they do a great job with it, whether it's a football game in the infield or their event in the summer, the night race, or the dirt race. So, I think they've done a good job. And this car, I think, has made it more challenging. This car is really difficult to adapt to these kinds of conditions with independent rear suspension, the drag, the toe links, and the transmission, and the tires just having such a small sidewall. There's not a lot to lean on, which you would want to have a little bit more forgiveness on dirt. With all that said, what I like is, I go back to the mid to late 90s when I saw the sport just blow up and become trendy or popular throughout the country, is because we were going to unique venues and new tracks and new markets and bringing in new fans. And so if having a dirt race does that, then I like to see one continue to be on the schedule. I would just say, and I think this is what's going to be difficult. How do you top what Bristol can do, right? Because I think if they've done such a great job, you go there for a few years. Now it's, okay, if we're going to have a dirt race, where do we go next? Do we do it somewhere else? And I think that to keep it fresh and keep it exciting, keep it unique, I think you do have to do that. But where could that be? Where would that be? And I know Marcus Smith's probably not agreeing with me right now, unless maybe it's, I don't know, is it New Hampshire? Is it one of their other tracks that, maybe they could do that with? Hard to say.
We hear from fans that don't mind dirt racing, but some just don't like the fact that we've lost Bristol in order to get one. Those are the diehard, like to see the concrete, like to see what you guys do in the fall, and want that concrete back in the spring. And that's why it should go to what they call a purpose-built dirt track. Do you understand that side of the conversation? And where are you on that? Because you said, Eldora, insert name of dirt track here. We could go there, but there's a lot of logistics involved with that. There's a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross.
Well, I would have always agreed and said, yes, absolutely, that should be the case until I started doing TV and I'm up in the booth looking down on in the spring and seeing empty grandstands and not we used to pack that place out 2 times a year. And now it's really just the night race. And still the night race and Bristol in general, one of my favorite events, anything that I go to. Even last year, I can remember sitting in the infield before that race started and just being in awe, right, of the number of people, the energy, the excitement, what that track creates. We had some new folks from one of our sponsors that were there, and they had never seen Bristol before, and I saw their eyes light up, and that is the magic of Bristol. If you don't fill that place up, the magic is gone, in my opinion. And so I'm not saying it was filled up for the dirt race either, but it was nice to see good viewership from the TV side of things. And I thought it was a pretty good race. So in that sense, I support it. But yeah, I think anybody that says, "Oh no, Bristol's got to stay," Bristol for 2 races. Then I would say, yeah, go support it, and make sure that the stands are filled up if that's the case. And that time of year is difficult to travel, and so maybe we do need to consider races that aren't necessarily going to pack the grandstands, but are going to be well timed out for people at home to watch. I do think there's been discussions around the schedule of midweek races or different venues where it is in prime time to get the eyeballs on the sport. So, yeah, I love Bristol. I want to see it continue to stay on the schedule. It doesn't matter to me whether it's dirt or not. I just want to see unique events that continue to grow the sport and bring new fans in, whatever that is.
When you were racing USAC days and you did open wheel days, you did both sprint cars and midget cars on dirt, and there was also obviously pavement. What was it like going back and forth in those kinds of cars back when you were doing that on a regular basis?
Yeah, I think the dirt purists are like, ooh, you can't do that. You don't run on pavement. Steve Kinzer doesn't run on pavement, although I think he did once, not in the stock car, but in some midgets or sprint cars. So, I think that it was a little bit taboo at that time. You either did one discipline or you did the other. But my career took off when I did pavement. So at that point, I was just looking back, or looking forward, not looking back. But yeah, I think, you've got the Chili Bowls, the Knoxville Nationals, you got stuff going on at Eldora. So if you look at purpose-built, tracks, there could be something that would work well for NASCAR. But again, that gets into all the politics and the economics and the business side of it that I don't think we want to bore all our listeners with too much on some of those politics.
You had mentioned the attendance headwinds that Bristol has faced in the last several years. We hear from listeners, we talk to fans, everybody has their take. Why do you feel that, like, the spring date at Bristol has been the one that has been lacking more than the fall date or the summer date, the second date at Bristol? Why do you think that is? We heard it's weather, it's time of year, it's, for some people it's dirt. We don't want to go see that. Why do you think the spring Bristol date is a hard sell in this day and age?
Well, I think, Marcus Smith and NASCAR probably have all the more data, more information, right, from fans and in polls that they do that would answer that better than I could. But, I think we saw when gas prices and hotel prices started going up, we started to see where people start choosing, okay, I'm going to go to Bristol or I'm going to go to races, but I'm only going to go to one. I'm not going to go to 2. I think there's a period of time where you probably had similar, almost 60-70% of the grandstands were filled with people that went twice a year, and maybe it was economically affordable, to be able to do that, and that became more challenging. Weather certainly hasn't helped. We've had some pretty rough weather in the spring. I mean, the first dirt race, right? We about flooded everybody out of there. So that it could be as easy as something like that. But I don't really know. Bristol to me is a spectacular. It's not an easy place to get to. There's not a lot of infrastructure around there. I wouldn't necessarily call it a destination place, but I would say it's one of the most spectacular racetracks in the world. And I think if you've ever been there, you know that. And it seems to me like more people recognize that that's why they come to the night race. I mean, it's you're what, 150, 160,000 people you're trying to put in that place or whatever the number is. That's not easy to do at any venue, let alone do it twice a year.
It feels like to Mike and I, though, Jeff, the dirt conversation taps into a bigger conversation about, and you sort of alluded to this, the variety that the schedule has to have these days in this day and age, whether it's a dirt race, whether it's a race inside the stadium, in my backyard here in Chicago, the street circuit race this summer. Now, from your view of where you are with Hendrick Motorsports, how important do you think that variety is to keep the schedule fresh?
Well, 100% is important. I think there's this balance between our longtime fans that have been very loyal to the sport, that want to see something that they recognize, that they resonate with, that they can support and get behind, whether it's the drivers and what they represent and their personalities or their driving style or maybe who they race for, the make that they race for. But then at the same time, you're trying to grow the sport. And so, a lot of discussion, especially with North Wilkesboro coming back on the schedule about, well, what about Rockingham, right? And other tracks that went away back in those mid to late 90s and bringing those back. And I say, what we gave up for those events is disappointing. I love Rockingham. Rockingham was also one of my favorite tracks, but it was in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't really well attended towards the end, and we were going to new places. We were, whether it was Texas or Southern California or Kansas or Vegas, I guess came later than that, Indianapolis, and that was exciting. And I always say this about Indianapolis. I personally think if it was possible, again, this goes back into the economics and the politics of it that are probably above you and me, and all of us here this morning. But I wish that Indianapolis would have been once every 4 years. To me, that would have continued to make it special, unique. I think people would have continued to want to come and see stock cars be there, but it's not an every year thing. And I think we saw it after 8 or 9 years, it kind of just started to fade. Now, was that because we don't put on the best race there? I don't know, but I'm all about, less is more, and you give people just enough to want to come back, and you got to then give them something a little bit more, something a little bit more unique and different the next time they come back, or eventually it is going to kind of wear. And so I guess where I was going with that is, how do you do this balance between, the fans that have been watching NASCAR for 30, 40, 50 years and say, that's my NASCAR, but then open it up, for new fans. And that's, I think, exactly what Chicago is doing. I think that's what the LA Coliseum is doing, and that's what I believe that NASCAR and Ben Kennedy, I think with the youthfulness of ideas he's bringing, I think those are great ideas. It's just how do you blend it and make the schedule match up to that goal.
Well, we appreciate you joining us for this full hour. We're gonna talk high level stuff. We're gonna talk racing philosophy, but we're also going to talk current events, matters of the day. Folks are going to chime in, and you can chime in at 866 Pit Lane later in the show. We'll fire in a couple calls here for Jeff. We've got a lot coming up on the show, including some Bristol chatter, some Martinsville, North Wilkesboro, and as we mentioned, current events of the day. 866 Pit Lane. You can also tweet us at SiriusXM NASCAR, hashtag TMD NASCAR, which is brought to you by Indeed. Attract, interview, and hire at Indeed.com/credit.